That's funny.
I know you wrote about De'Aaron and Domantas Sabonis last night. Any takeaways from your couple minutes with De'Aaron yesterday?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is that, and I don't want this to be shade at previous coaches, but I felt like last season the roster was better than a 30-win roster. I think we all can agree that that was a disappointing season. We didn't know how good the roster was, but it didn't feel like a 30-win roster. And then when we got to the regular season, Fox gets off to this slow start. Halliburton is taking over as like the primary point guard. We started learning very quickly that like while there wasn't like something going on between Halliburton and Fox as people, their chemistry was bad. And it was a lot because you took the ball out of De'Aaron Fox's hands and you put it in Halliburton's. And Fox is a guy who his entire life has had the ball in his hands. And I think that between conversations with Sabonis and Fox and Mike Brown over the last couple of days, we're kind of learning that as soon as Mike Brown got this job, he hired Luke Locks and then sent him straight to De'Aaron Fox and said, I need you to work with De'Aaron Fox on how to play off the ball. So maybe it was part of the pitch that Mike Brown gave to ownership and management when he was going through the interview process or whatever it was. He spotted something that I think that we kind of missed overall, and that was the impact of Fox trying to figure out how to play off the ball, but it really didn't feel like they had prepped him or he had worked on that the entire offseason. Sure, he worked on his shooting, but I think he worked on a lot of off ball. I mean, a lot of like creating for himself, shooting and stuff like that. And so I think that there was miscommunication. I think it led to a very weird feel with the team last year. And I think that that's why the Kings addressed it right away this year. They went right to the issue, and Luke Locks has been working with him all summer long from June until now. He even went on his honeymoon with him and Rasay, and it's to get Fox to just get comfortable off the ball. And it's not easy for a player who's a ball dominant player. And now he's still going to be ball dominant, but he's going to need to figure out how to move to an open spot and hit a wide open 3-point shot. And he can do that. It's just, again, it didn't feel like he was ready for that last year. And it was almost like hey, they'll work it out on the court.
Mm.
And that's not the way it goes. If you're going to have a player do something different than what they're used to doing, you probably should have set them up for success in the offseason.
Well, the I don't know if ironic is the right word, but I'll use it anyway. The ironic thing about that is neither one of them knew what to do off the ball. Like Tyrese, he couldn't be the shooting guard that De'Aaron Fox needed, and De'Aaron Fox couldn't be the shooting guard that Tyrese Halliburton needed. So they both got set up for failure in that respect. Um, this media day and early training camp, do you thinking back on it, do you see a difference in De'Aaron Fox? Like, does he seem to be in a better space? Is he less agitated? I don't remember anything really being bad during training camp and media day last year, but I know this year he seems like he's in a really good spot. Is there any difference to you from him this year to last year?
Oh, yeah, 100 times different. Yeah.
Mm.
Like, I think De'Aaron lost his smile last year. Like, I don't know what happened. I know he came in and, like, the roster hadn't been changed over like they had hoped it would. And, some guys that didn't want to be there were still there. There was this, like, tenuous thing hanging over Luke's head where everyone kind of knew that if things didn't go well, he wasn't going to be around very long. I think that there were a lot of things kind of playing into it. And I don't think he came in like maybe the best shape of his career, which I think like this year we're looking at him and he looks like the Fox that we saw like 2-3 years ago when he was a monster.
Mm.
And I'll tell you this, I was recording and like the way I record is I have my phone like pretty close to in front of my face, but you can see my eyes from like here up over the top of my phone, and I'm talking to people while I'm recording with my phone with a mic on it. And he smiled like while we were talking. He found it funny, something funny, and so I actually screen captured that and I used it in my post when I wrote about him and Sabonis last night for the Kings Beat. I put it out there, and then this morning, his wife actually replied to it and said, "Sure, it's nice to see a smiling fox," or something like that.
Mhm.
I think it's good for everybody, right? Like, this is a young guy who has been under a lot of pressure because his team can't win, and he's still only 24 years old, and he wants to succeed and he wants to carry this team back to the playoffs, and it just hasn't worked out, and they haven't figured it out, and he hasn't figured it out, and you kind of get this feeling that he knows that this is like everything has been put in place for him to succeed this year, and if he
Mhm.
doesn't, it's on him, and I think he knows that, and like he's confident, he's comfortable, he's nothing but smiles, and it's good to see. It's good to see sort of the weight lifted off of him, and I'll add to this. I think Sabonis having two guys to carry the weight instead of just one is tremendous for him. And while the other guys, like, there's nothing wrong with Harrison Barnes or Tyrese Halliburton or Buddy Hield, the pressure was never on those guys to carry this franchise. It was always on Fox, and now it's on Fox and Sabonis. And Sabonis has some of the broadest shoulders you're gonna find. He's gonna help carry this thing, and that's big. That's big for Fox.
And to that point, real quick, Damien, um, you mentioned something in there, James, that always stuck out to me, and this was something that prompted a question that I asked, I think last week. Like I said something to the effect of, if they don't make the playoffs, can you see a scenario where Fox is still here? Because it's been, commonly people talk about, oh, well, they got to make the playoffs. If they don't, Fox is out. You move on from all this and other stuff. But James brought up a good point just now, and I thought about that when I asked the question. Was he's still just 24 years old, man. He's 24. Like, he's good right now, and he doesn't. You can make the argument he's going to be so much better at 27. And we're looking at a guy who's 24, and like, if they don't make the playoffs or they don't get something done, then it's just never going to happen for this guy. You got to get him out of there. And it's just, that's what always gives me pause. I understand why people say that and have that type of outlook on the season. But when you sit down and look at, I know he's been in the league going on 6 years or whatever, but it's not you can't replace his actual age with years of experience in the NBA. He's still 24 years old. He's probably not even as strong as he'll ever be naturally right now at 24 years old. And you said that, and it just always comes back to me, man. Like, he is 24 years old.
It's interesting. He's just a different kid than when he came in the league too. Like, he was brash and he had the spiky hair and he was so wiry thin, but everything was, like, he was cocky. And I think he lost a little bit of that. And you do, every guy does as they
Everyone will
get.
do that to you.
Yeah. Well, losing does that to you, but like aging 5, 6 years, it does. Like, you grow out of some of that as you get a little bit older. And, he's a good kid. He has good intentions. He wants to be great. He wants to do things right here. He wants to be in Sacramento. He's never budged from that. And so I think we're at a point where, like, hopefully everything is set up. I had a conversation with him on media day, and we talked about it, and he said, I'd really like to get to the playoffs, and I said I would really like to see you get to the playoffs, because I haven't seen it, and this is my 13th year covering the team. I haven't got to cover the playoffs. I've covered Warriors in the playoffs, but I haven't covered the Kings, and it's tough. I mean, it beats everyone down. The losing does, but I think it's interesting watching a kid grow up. He's growing up in Sacramento. My first year I started doing this job was DeMarcus Cousins' first year, and it's just crazy because now you as a reporter, you're able to watch the lifespan of a player, their actual NBA lifespan, and to watch a player come into the league as a 19-year-old kid, and at this point he's out of the league, but he might be back in the league. We'll see. But to see a guy like sort of age out it's really intriguing to see, and like, I'd like to see Fox find this success for himself and for everybody. I mean, everybody wants the positive vibe here in Sacramento.